Some people say, love conquers all. They're wrong. Love gets beaten down by 1,000 small cruelties, worn thin by years of disrespect, and finally strangled by the realization that you're fighting alone for something the other person never valued. My name is Jack Hayes. I'm 34 years old, and I've spent the last 6 years learning what it costs to love someone whose family thinks you're beneath them. I'm an industrial electrician. I make $68,000 a year working at the Riverside manufacturing plant, maintaining the electrical systems that keep the production lines running. It's honest work. Work that requires skill, attention to detail, and the kind of reliability that keeps people's lights on and machines humming. At 26, while most of my friends were still figuring out their lives, I bought my house. A modest 3-bedroom ranch on Maple Street with a 2-car garage and a backyard big enough for a garden. I paid it off in 8 years through overtime shifts, weekend side jobs, and living below my means. No mortgage, no debt, just a man who built something solid with his own hands and sweat. But none of that mattered to Gloria Palmer. To her, I was just the electrician who married her daughter. I met Vanessa 8 years ago at a 4th of July barbecue thrown by my buddy Mike from work. She was 26, managing a clothing store at the mall, with laugh lines around her green eyes and auburn hair that caught the sunlight. I was 26, still an apprentice electrician with calloused hands and work boots that had seen better days. She was sitting on Mike's back porch, nursing a beer and watching the kids run around with sparklers. I walked over, introduced myself, and we talked until the fireworks started. She didn't flinch when I told her what I did for a living. "That's cool," she said, and I could tell she meant it. "You actually fix things, build things. That's more than most people can say." Our courtship was genuine, real. Vanessa loved that I didn't pretend to be something I wasn't. She'd drive over after her shifts at the store, and we'd sit on my couch eating takeout and watching old movies. She said I was authentic, her word. For 2 years, it was just us, simple, honest, good. Then I met Gloria. "So you're an electrician," she said the first time Vanessa brought me to Sunday dinner. The way she pronounced it made it sound like a disease. Her eyes traveled from my collared shirt, my best one, to my work boots, which I'd scrubbed clean but couldn't make look new. "Yes, ma'am. Industrial electrician at Riverside Manufacturing," I replied. "I see." She turned back to Vanessa. "And how long have you two been seeing each other?" That dinner set the pattern for everything that followed. Gloria's tight smiles in wedding photos, her pointed comments about practical careers versus professional advancement, the way she'd steer dinner conversation toward Vanessa's brother Jason, the financial analyst, and his wife Kelly, the registered nurse. "Jason just got another promotion," she'd announce, looking directly at me. "Regional manager now. Kelly's working toward her nurse practitioner license. They're really building something together." The implication was always clear. Unlike you and my daughter. For the first 3 years of our marriage, I endured those family dinners. I sat at Gloria's table, ate her pot roast, and let her snide comments roll off my back because I thought it would get better. Because I loved Vanessa enough to believe that time would change things. It didn't. After 3 years of Gloria's passive-aggressive warfare, I stopped going to family events. Vanessa would drive to her parents' house alone while I stayed home, feeling both relieved and abandoned. She'd return with updates I didn't ask for and apologies I didn't want to hear. "She doesn't mean anything by it, Jack. That's just how she is," she would say. But I knew exactly what Gloria meant. Every word was calculated, designed to make me feel small, to remind me that in her eyes, her daughter had married down. 2 years into our marriage, Vanessa quit her job at the store. "I want to focus on our home," she explained. I supported her completely, financially and emotionally. I made enough for both of us, and seeing her happy mattered more than the extra income. But to Gloria, this was fresh ammunition. "She's financially dependent on a blue-collar worker," I overheard her tell her sister Diane during one Christmas gathering. It breaks my heart. Financial dependent, as if taking care of your wife was something shameful. By year 4, the pattern was cemented. Vanessa would visit her family solo. I'd work overtime, fix things around the house, and wait for her to come home with tension in her shoulders and guilt in her voice. The cycle repeated for 2 more years, until last month, when Vanessa approached me about Thanksgiving with hope in her eyes and desperation in her voice. My mom's changed, Jack. I know how that sounds, but she has. She wants to bury the hatchet. She specifically asked me to invite you, she said. I looked at my wife, really looked at her. At 34, Vanessa was still beautiful, but 6 years of navigating between her husband and her mother had worn lines around her eyes. She wanted this to work, needed it to work. One more chance, I said. But this is it, Vanessa. If she starts her usual routine, I'm done. She won't, Vanessa promised. She's ready to move forward. I should have trusted my gut, because the moment I walked through that door, I knew. Gloria hadn't changed at all. She'd just been sharpening her knives. Thanksgiving morning arrived gray and cold as I pulled my truck into the Palmer driveway. Their house stood before us like a monument to suburban success. 2 stories of brick and vinyl siding, professional landscaping, and a 3-car garage. Vanessa had been quiet during the 20-minute drive, occasionally reaching over to adjust my collar. Nervous grooming. She wanted this to go well so badly I could feel it radiating off her. "Remember what we talked about," she said as I killed the engine. "Clean slate. Fresh start." Howard Palmer answered the door. Vanessa's father, a man who'd perfected the art of passive existence in a house ruled by his wife's opinions. He was 62, soft around the middle, with the perpetually tired expression of someone who'd stopped fighting battles long ago. "Jack, good to see you." His handshake was firm but brief. "Come in. Gloria's in the kitchen." The dining room table was set for 7. Gloria and Howard, Jason and his wife Kelly, Gloria's sister Diane, and us. The good china was out, crystal glasses catching the light from the chandelier overhead. Jason appeared from the living room, beer in hand, wearing a smile that seemed genuine enough. "Glad you could make it. How's work treating you?" "Can't complain. Busy season with all the holiday shutdowns," I answered. Kelly emerged behind him, petite and blonde with polished appearance. "Hi, Jack. It's been forever." She gave me a quick hug that felt obligatory but not unkind. Diane was already seated, Gloria's older sister who'd never married and seemed to live vicariously through her sister's family dramas. Then Gloria swept in from the kitchen, carrying a serving dish of green bean casserole. At 58, she'd maintained her figure through expensive gym memberships and sheer force of will. Her silver hair was styled perfectly, her makeup flawless. "Jack," she said, her smile bright and cold as winter sunshine. "How wonderful that you could join us." "Thank you for having me, Gloria," I replied. "Of course. Family is family, after all." The first 30 minutes passed smoothly enough. Howard carved while Gloria orchestrated the passing of dishes. The conversation stayed safely neutral. Weather, traffic, holiday shopping plans. I helped myself to turkey and stuffing, kept my mouth busy with food instead of words. Vanessa kept glancing at me, checking my temperature like I might explode without warning. But I was fine. Calm. If Gloria wanted to play nice, I could play along. Then, halfway through the meal, she started. "So, Jack," Gloria said, delicately cutting her turkey into precise pieces. "Still working at the plant?" "Yes, ma'am. Same position, but I've taken on more responsibilities. Training new apprentices, overseeing the maintenance schedule," I responded. "Responsibilities. That's wonderful." She chewed thoughtfully. "Any talk of promotions? Moving up in management, perhaps?" "Here we go. I'm happy where I am. Good pay, good benefits, and I enjoy the work." "Oh, I'm sure you do, but surely you must think about advancement." She turned to Jason. "Jason just made regional manager, didn't you, sweetheart? Tell Jack about the promotion." Jason shifted uncomfortably. Mom, I'm sure Jack doesn't want to— Nonsense, Gloria interrupted. It's good to share success stories. Jason's managing 12 branch offices now. Base salary of $95,000 plus bonuses. And Kelly just got accepted into the nurse practitioner program. That's great, I said. You should be proud. We are. So proud. Gloria's eyes fixed on mine. It's important to have goals, to keep pushing forward. I suppose it's all relative, though. What's considered good money in one profession might be adequate in another. The table fell silent except for the soft clink of silverware against china. Vanessa's fork had stopped moving. Jason was studying his plate. Howard reached for his wine glass. Mom? Vanessa said quietly. Please. What, dear? Gloria replied innocently. I'm just making conversation. It's wonderful that Jack is content with his position. She wasn't done. I was telling Mrs. Martin from church about you, Jack. When I told her you were an electrician, she said, "Oh, how nice. Those trade workers are so important." Trade workers. As if you were service personnel. My hands tightened around my fork. The people who keep the lights on and the machines running are pretty essential, Gloria. Of course. I didn't mean to imply otherwise, she said, though her tone suggested she meant exactly that. It's just that Vanessa is so bright, so capable. She could have married anyone, someone with real potential, someone who could provide her with the kind of life she deserves. The words hung in the air like smoke. Vanessa's face had gone pale. Jason was shaking his head slightly. Howard had given up pretending to eat. Real potential, I repeated slowly. Professional growth, advancement opportunities, the ability to provide more than just adequacy. Gloria's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Vanessa is 34 now. She should be thinking about her future. Instead, she's dependent on a man who fixes wires for a living. Something inside me snapped. Not dramatically. Just a clean, quiet break, like a circuit overloading and shutting down. I set down my fork and looked directly at Gloria Palmer. You want to talk about adequacy? My voice was calm, conversational. Let's talk about it. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I own my house outright. Bought it at 26, paid it off at 34. No mortgage, Gloria. No debt of any kind. How's your mortgage situation? After 30 years in this place, do you and Howard still owe the bank money? Gloria's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. You want to talk about providing for your daughter? I've supported Vanessa completely for 4 years. She hasn't worked because she doesn't have to work. How much money do you bring into this household, Gloria? Jack, Vanessa started. I held up my hand without looking at her. I'm not finished. I leaned forward slightly, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. You want to talk about character? I've sat at this table for 6 years listening to your passive-aggressive bullshit. I've endured your snide comments because I love your daughter. But you're a miserable, shallow woman who measures human worth by job titles and tax brackets. Gloria's face had turned red, her carefully composed mask finally slipping. How dare you? How dare I what? I interrupted. Tell the truth? Point out that you've spent 6 years trying to make me feel worthless because your daughter chose a man who actually loves her instead of a paycheck? I straightened up, looking around the table. You know what the difference is between me and the kind of man you think Vanessa should have married? I would never disrespect her the way you've disrespected me. Gloria's eyes filled with tears. Whether from rage or humiliation, I couldn't tell and didn't care. You sit in this house that your husband paid for, eating food bought with his money, and you judge me for being a working man. But at least I work, Gloria. At least I contribute something to the world besides bitterness and disappointment. The silence that followed was deafening. Gloria was crying openly now, her perfect makeup beginning to run. Howard sat frozen. Jason looked like he wanted to disappear. I turned to Vanessa, my wife of 6 years, the woman I'd loved enough to endure all of this for. I'm leaving, I said quietly. You coming? Vanessa's green eyes darted between me and her mother, who was now sobbing into her napkin while Diane awkwardly patted her shoulder. She chose her mother. "Jack, you need to apologize," she said. The words hit me like a physical blow. After everything, after 6 years of insults and undermining and disrespect, she wanted me to apologize. "She's been cruel to me for 6 years, Vanessa." "She's my mother, Jack," she replied. "And I'm your husband." We stared at each other across the ruins of Thanksgiving dinner, across the wreckage of our marriage. "If you don't apologize to my mother," Vanessa's voice was barely audible, "I can't go with you." Something fundamental shifted inside me, like tectonic plates moving deep underground. "Then stay," I said. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. Got in my truck, drove home through empty streets, and sat in my driveway for 10 minutes, waiting for my phone to ring. The phone never rang. I spent Thanksgiving night on my couch, staring at my phone and waiting for a call that never came. The house felt different, bigger somehow, like Vanessa's absence had created physical space where warmth used to be. By midnight, I'd convinced myself she'd walk through the door. She'd realize what had happened, stand up to her mother for the first time in her life, and come home to me. We'd talk it through. Maybe finally have the conversation we should have had years ago. Dawn broke gray and cold, and I was alone. Friday passed in a haze of disbelief. I kept expecting her to appear, to act like the last 24 hours had been some kind of nightmare. I cleaned the house, vacuumed the living room, did the dishes, made the bed we'd shared for 6 years. At 2 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text message. "Staying at my parents' for a few days. Need time to think. Need time to think." Not, "I'm sorry you were disrespected." Not, "I should have defended you." Need time to think. I called her immediately. "Vanessa, what the hell? Come home. Let's talk about this." Her voice was cold, distant, like she was talking to a stranger. "Not until you apologize to my mother." "I will not apologize for defending myself," I said. "Then we have nothing to talk about," she replied. The line went dead. I called back 3 times. She didn't answer. The days crawled forward like wounded animals. I went to work Monday morning because I didn't know what else to do. Work became my refuge. Physical tasks that required focus, problems with solutions, systems that made sense. Then I'd drive home to an empty house, and the weight of silence would settle on me again. Tuesday evening, I tried calling once more. "Vanessa, this is insane. Your mother was completely out of line, and you know it. You humiliated her in her own home," she replied. "She humiliated me for 6 years," I shot back. "She's family, Jack," she said. "So am I. Or I'm supposed to be." Another hang-up. Another night of replaying every moment of our relationship, looking for signs I'd missed. Had Vanessa always been this conflict-averse? Had she always chosen the path of least resistance over doing what was right? The answer was yes, and I'd been too in love to see it clearly. By the end of the first week, a pattern had emerged. Vanessa would text occasionally, brief, cold updates about staying with her parents, needing space, waiting for me to do the right thing. I'd call and she'd either ignore me or deliver the same ultimatum. Apologize or we have nothing to discuss. I began to understand that she genuinely believed I was wrong, that standing up for myself was somehow a betrayal of our marriage. In her mind, I should have continued to take Gloria's abuse indefinitely because that was easier than confronting her mother. The second week was worse than the first. I'd adjusted to her physical absence, but the emotional abandonment cut deeper each day. I'd catch myself setting 2 coffee cups in the morning, buying groceries for 2 people. But she wasn't coming home. Not unless I crawled back to Gloria Palmer and begged forgiveness for the crime of self-respect. I started replaying our entire marriage, looking at it through this new lens. How many times had Vanessa chosen her mother's comfort over mine? How many family events had I skipped to avoid Gloria's passive-aggressive warfare? The pattern was everywhere once I started looking. Vanessa was incapable of disappointing her mother. She'd rather sacrifice her husband's dignity, her marriage's foundation, our entire future together, than have one difficult conversation with Gloria Palmer. 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, I bought a book called Emotional Manipulation in Relationships. I read it cover to cover in one sitting, recognizing patterns I'd lived with for years. The subtle gaslighting, the guilt trips. Vanessa wasn't evil, she wasn't calculating, but she was weak. And her weakness had slowly eroded every boundary I'd tried to establish. I thought about couples therapy. Maybe if we had a neutral third party, we could work through this. But even as I considered it, I knew the truth. Nothing would change. Vanessa would sit in therapy and nod at the right moments. But the next time Gloria expressed disapproval, my wife would fold like origami. 4 weeks after Thanksgiving, I was sitting in my truck outside the plant after my shift ended, staring at another text from Vanessa. "My mom is really hurt, Jack. She just wants an apology. Is your pride really worth our marriage?" I read those words 3 times before something crystallized in my mind. She'd gotten it exactly backwards. Her mother's pride was what had started this, and Vanessa's unwillingness to demand that apology was what was ending it. I drove to the office of attorney Patricia Cole that afternoon. Patricia was in her 50s, with steel gray hair and the kind of direct gaze that suggested she'd seen every variation of human stupidity the legal system had to offer. "Tell me what's going on," she said. I explained the whole situation. 6 years of disrespect, a wife who wouldn't defend me, a month-long abandonment because I finally stood up for myself. Patricia listened without interruption. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "How long has she been gone?" she asked. 4 weeks. "Any communication about coming home?" "Only demands that I apologize to her mother." Patricia nodded slowly. "In Virginia, abandonment is grounds for divorce, but more importantly, you need to ask yourself if this marriage is worth saving. From what you've described, the fundamental problem isn't going to change." I sat in that office chair and felt something settle in my chest. Clarity, resolution, peace, maybe. "I want to file for divorce," I said. "The house?" she asked. "Mine before marriage." "Savings?" "Joint account. About 80,000. "This should be straightforward," she explained. "She'll get half the marital assets, the savings, but the house is yours. I'm sure." 1 week later, the papers were ready. I sent them to the Palmer house via certified mail, and then I waited for the explosion. The explosion came 48 hours later. I was replacing a faulty transformer when my phone started buzzing. The first call came at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. Vanessa's name lit up my screen, but I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again, and again. By the 4th call, Pete noticed my distraction. "Answer the damn phone, Hayes." I stepped outside into the December cold and called her back. "Jack, what the hell is this?" Vanessa's voice was shrill, panicked, nothing like the cold distance of the past month. "Divorce papers," I said calmly. "You're divorcing me?" she screamed. "Yes." Silence stretched between us, broken only by the distant hum of machinery and the sound of Vanessa's sharp breathing. "You can't be serious. Over an argument? Over one bad dinner?" The casual dismissal of 6 years of systematic disrespect hit me like a slap. One bad dinner. As if the problem had started and ended with Thanksgiving. "It wasn't one bad dinner, Vanessa. It was 6 years of you choosing your mother over me. 6 years of you refusing to defend our marriage," I replied. That's not how it was," she said weakly. "That's exactly how it was. And when I finally stood up for myself, you chose her side. Again." I could hear her crying now, the kind of ugly sobbing that comes when reality hits like a freight train. "We can work this out. We can go to therapy. Please don't do this." I tried to work it out for 6 years. I tried to be patient, understanding, forgiving. It didn't get better. "It won't," I said. "Jack, please." "The terms are simple," I interrupted. "You get half the savings, $40,000. That's it. The house is mine. I bought it before we met." "This is insane. You can't just throw away our marriage because you're mad at my mother," she said. Mad at her mother. Even now, she couldn't see it. Couldn't understand that this was about her, about us, about the fundamental breakdown of partnership and respect. "Sign the papers, Vanessa. It's the best deal you're going to get," I said. I hung up and immediately blocked her number, not out of anger, but out of necessity. This conversation would repeat endlessly if I let it. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. Unknown number. "Hello? You think you can just throw away my daughter?" Gloria's voice was venomous, all pretense of politeness finally abandoned. "After everything our family has done for you? Everything our family has done for you." The delusion was so complete, so breathtaking in its scope, that I almost laughed. "Your family has done nothing for me except make me feel unwelcome for 6 years, I said. "Vanessa deserves better than you. Then she can go find him," I replied, hanging up. I blocked that number too. Then I blocked Howard's number, Jason's, even mutual friends who might try to guilt me back into a marriage that had died the moment my wife chose her mother's feelings over mine. Over the next few weeks, I heard through the grapevine that Vanessa was devastated, crying constantly, barely eating, living in her childhood bedroom like a teenager. Gloria, according to these same sources, was already talking about better prospects. A lawyer from their church, an accountant who lived in her neighborhood, someone appropriate. The irony was lost on them. Gloria was already planning her daughter's next relationship, while Vanessa grieved the end of this one. I felt nothing when I heard these updates. No satisfaction, no vindication, no lingering hurt. Just a vast sense of relief, like I'd been holding my breath for 6 years and could finally exhale. I started going to therapy myself, not to save my marriage, but to understand how I'd stayed in a relationship that required me to accept disrespect as the price of admission. Dr. Sarah specialized in relationships and self-worth. "What kept you there so long?" she asked during our 3rd session. "I thought love meant sacrificing for the other person," I answered. "What about reciprocity? What was she sacrificing for you?" I couldn't answer that question, because Vanessa had never sacrificed anything for our marriage. The sacrifice had always flowed in one direction. "Healthy relationships require mutual respect," Dr. Sarah explained. "When one person consistently prioritizes others over their partner, the relationship becomes unbalanced, unsustainable." The divorce was finalized on March 15th, 3.5 months after Thanksgiving. I signed the papers in Patricia Cole's office, transferred Vanessa's share of the savings to her personal account, and walked out into the spring sunshine a free man. That evening, I sat on my back porch with a beer and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. My phone had stopped ringing weeks earlier. The drama had ended, the chaos had settled, and what remained was simple, quiet, good. I owned my house. I enjoyed my work. I had friends who respected me. The papers were signed. The marriage was over. And for the first time in 6 years, I could breathe. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I turned 35 in my own house, surrounded by friends who'd never questioned my worth or made me feel like I needed to apologize for who I was. The transformation hadn't been dramatic. There was no sudden enlightenment, no moment of triumphant revelation. Instead, it was like slowly recovering from a long illness, strength returning gradually, colors becoming brighter, sleep coming easier. I still work at Riverside Manufacturing, still fix the electrical systems that keep the production lines running. The difference is that I no longer apologize for what I do or feel defensive about earning an honest living with my hands. I've started dating casually. Nothing serious yet, but I'm open to it in ways I couldn't be while married to someone who required me to shrink myself to fit into her family's narrow vision. I bought new furniture for the house, painted the guest room, and adopted a dog, a German shepherd named Hank. My parents are proud of me. My father, a retired plumber, told me, "You stood up for yourself, son. That's all a man can do. I hear occasional updates about Vanessa through mutual acquaintances. She's still living with her parents at 35. Gloria has introduced her to several suitable men, professionals with the right credentials, but none have worked out. Vanessa seems lost, adrift. She'd spent 6 years married to a man who loved her completely, and she'd thrown it away rather than have one difficult conversation with her mother. I don't gloat about her situation. I don't feel vindicated. Mostly, I feel nothing at all, which is probably the healthiest response. I've learned that you can't build a life with someone who won't defend you. Love isn't enough if respect isn't part of the foundation. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from someone who will never choose you. This morning, I woke up in my own bed, in my own house, next to a dog who thinks I'm perfect exactly as I am. I made coffee for one person, read the news without anxiety, and drove to work knowing that everyone there values what I contribute. If you're reading this and you're in a relationship where your partner won't stand up for you, where you're consistently disrespected and dismissed, leave. Choose yourself. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. I'm 35, divorced, debt-free, respected at my job, and for the first time in 6 years, I'm enough. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.